What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's time to talk about the Super Bowl, of course. Brief recap on a few things, talking a little bit about the game, the halftime show, in addition to a lot more other analysis. Now, obviously, last weekend was Super Bowl 59, which took place at the Superdome in New Orleans. By the way, underrated stadium. Go check it out if you can. But yeah, the Super Bowl was held last weekend. And, it's one of those things that even if you don't care about sports, it's still something that you still watch anyway. It's a cultural thing for us Americans. Like, you don't have to give a fuck or shit about football or even sports in general, but you still tune in to watch the Super Bowl, not only because it's entertaining and it's a lot of fun, the commercials, the halftime shows. It's still such an enjoyable thing to watch every year. And especially if your team happens to be there, getting a chance to win one of the most iconic trophies in sports in the Lombardi Trophy, although not as iconic as the Stanley Cup. But whether or not you like football, or whether or not your football team is there, the Super Bowl is still such a cultural thing for America, for literally everybody to watch. I mean, the entire goddamn event literally draws in over 100 million concurrent viewers each year. Of course, in that football game, the Philadelphia Eagles won 40-22 over the Kansas City Chiefs, in what was arguably one of the biggest blowouts that we've seen in Super Bowl history. And even if you already watched the first half, it was already starting to become a blowout by that point. And to be fair, I can't really think of anybody who would expect this result to happen. I don't think there was literally anybody who was expecting a beatdown like this. And it was a beatdown. All what really matters is the dragon has finally been slayed for once. The ferocious beast has been put to rest. Thank the Lord, man. Thank fucking God. All of us, including normal football fans and sports fans in general, have been waiting for this moment. And this is not just any loss that the Chiefs just endured. This was an outright cock-slapping. This was like the equivalent of Manchester City getting scored on 5-0 by Arsenal the other day. You had no idea how good that felt as an Arsenal fan. Man City's only goal coming from Erling Haaland, no surprise. But you know what I mean. The dynasty that kept on winning over and over and over again is on the verge of losing the Premier League this year. This is what the Chiefs' loss felt like, and it got pretty bad for them. As soon as it was 27-0 Eagles, that was game. There was just no fucking way that the Chiefs were going to come back from that, unless they decide to pull a 28-3 and the bird flu ends up spreading from Falcon to Eagle. But if you look at how the two teams were playing, that was just not going to happen. This game was already pretty much over right after the halftime show. But this was absolute carnage. And I'm sorry if you're a Chiefs fan, but this was, for the most part, warranted. Chiefs fans, at least the ones that I've met and know, have been pretty chill for the most part, and at least they're better than Patriots fans with their dynasty, and they're certainly way better than Man City fans. However, we can't just keep seeing the same team win over and over again. It gets boring, and it's unfair. Welcome back to reality. I've seen you guys play all year. It's all this talk about three-peats. Oh yeah, we're gonna be better than the Patriots dynasty. 12-0, only undefeated team. We're coming after the Miami Dolphins' only perfect season record. The refs literally playing in your favor, missing calls against you guys, and allowing calls for the opposing teams, most of which are actually bullshit, having to literally see Taylor Swift every 5 seconds, having to deal with Jackson Mahomes. Well, guess I got news for you, buddy. Nobody wins like the way you guys did throughout the regular season. And it was bound to happen. This was almost entirely predictable. It's almost like watching the Steelers in 2020 get mollywopped by the Browns. They had an 11-0 streak, and they won in bullshit fashion at times. Look what happened when they played against the Browns in the first round. Or the Vikings in 2022, literally turning into a pumpkin against a Giants team that wasn't even supposed to be there. And the Eagles, they're actually a good football team. They got good coordinators, they got a really good head coach, they got a good quarterback, they got a good defense, they got a good offensive line, even without Jason Kelce. The Eagles were a much better team, and it showed. This was already a runaway before the halftime show started. It's also great that Vic Fangio finally got that Super Bowl ring. Same with Kellen Moore. Not many people realize Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore are actually good coordinators. The reason why both of them got fired from their previous positions was because they're usually cast off as scapegoats. Kellen Moore got fired from the Cowboys, even though it was Mike McCarthy's fault for that play call. Jerry Jones was just too stupid to realize that. And Vic Fangio was also technically casted off as a scapegoat from the Broncos when he was head coach there. The Dolphins, on the other hand, I don't quite think he really fit the scheme with the players that we got, so I can understand that. So, I mean, just by looking at this Eagles team, I mean, they were just the best team in the league. Look at what they did to the Chiefs. Absolute shellacking. Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions, one of which turned into a pick six, putting the Eagles up 17-0. Travis Kelce barely did anything. Their offensive line turned into a pumpkin literally on the biggest moments, and the offense in general couldn't do anything. They barely had 50 yards of offense. While the Eagles, even though they had Saquon Barkley, who is such an insane running back for who he is, and Jalen Hurts, meanwhile, was out there slinging the football, looking like he was prime Joe Montana out there. Almost like if Saquon was just a distraction for the defensive line of the Chiefs, allowing Jalen Hurts to make these incredible throws to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. But the Eagles finally beat the Chiefs in such embarrassing fashion. Patrick Mahomes got completely humiliated, along with Travis Kelce. The offense literally couldn't do anything. Vic Fangio was literally running circles around them. Andy Reid was getting outcoached by Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts had the absolute game of his life. For what it's worth, it was an exciting game, at least for the first half. But then the second half, it got a little bit boring because the Eagles wouldn't stop scoring, and most of the touchdowns that the Chiefs got were essentially just garbage time. It was already over once it was 40-6. Now, this was also actually the first game that a U.S. president was able to attend. Yes, Donald Trump was at the game. You know, he was greeting and saying hi to all the players, and, you know, it looked like he had a pretty good time while he was there. Now, I'm not sure whether or not Trump actually invited the Eagles over to the White House for the usual celebratory meal, probably McDonald's, by the way, like what he did, I think, with the Clemson Tigers when they won their national championship, because usually, like, when it's the Super Bowl, and I think this tradition started with the World Series, you know, whether that be the Yankees or the Red Sox, usually the champions visit the White House, and it's sort of like a celebratory thing. They'll go in, the president invites them for like a little dinner. You know, they get to meet the president, hang out at the White House, have a nice little lunch or dinner or whatever. You know, the president says a few words, the players also say a few words, and it's sort of like a little fun, traditional little thing. They've been doing it since the Super Bowl first started. All 5 major North American sports teams do this every time they win the championship, so MLS, NHL, and NBA are also included. I think the last time that they won, the Eagles, he didn't invite them actually, and I believe it's because the players had animosity towards Trump, and they didn't want to show up to the White House if they were invited, and also because they knelt, you know, for the national anthem, and he just said fuck you instead. Basically, he was rooting for the Chiefs, by the way. Another thing, you know, seeing a sad Taylor Swift when the Chiefs lost was pretty hysterical, to say the least. And now there's like a picture of her, and she's like, you know, completely bewildered at how bad the team was doing, and the fact that her Pookie, Travis Kelce, had arguably the worst game of his career, and that was pretty funny to me when I first saw it. I thought it was pretty hilarious. Honestly, as a football fan myself, all I have to say is, hopefully that doesn't mean we have to be bothered by Taylor Swift every 5 seconds when watching a goddamn football game, because, you know, and other people have pointed this out, mainly people who are big fans of the NFL, that effectively the NFL has completely devolved into nothing but Taylor Swift footage literally every time the Chiefs play. Even I, as a football fan, I can't imagine, like, you know, you're trying to watch a football game and all you're seeing is this pop star that you may or may not even like. And you also get allegations that the team that she is a fan of being rigged to win. My honest sympathies. Gets very annoying when you keep seeing the same person over over and over again, and the team that she's rooting for or the player that she's dating, that team, goes on to an iffy win streak, and not just any win streak, like literally the wins that they get are in the most ridiculous ways possible, which, by the way, contributed to the Chiefs being exposed in the Super Bowl. Most of their wins were in one score and one possession games. They were basically like the Steelers of 2020 and the Vikings of 2022. Start off hot and win these fluky games, only to get exposed later on in the playoffs, even though you have all these allegations of these games being in favor of the Chiefs because of Taylor Swift. So I could see, like, seeing Taylor Swift every 5 seconds, it gets very repetitive and it gets very annoying. Now, if it was like, Pitbull or DJ Khaled or even like Alice Cooper up in the stands, someone who's like, really cool, that would be a little bit different. And I highly doubt that the NFL would be favoring the games that those people happen to be a fan of. So the Super Bowl did happen, and the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl. Although I did notice, and I'm completely not surprised about this, since this did happen last time they won, I did notice that after the Eagles have won, like they basically clinched the Super Bowl, that there were riots in Philadelphia right afterwards. I am not surprised by this outcome whatsoever. Can I please discuss something briefly? And this is the case for football fans and sports fans in general, especially for like the Chargers, especially back when they were based in San Diego and stuff like that. And, the soccer ultras in Europe and also in South America, recalling what happened last year at Hard Rock Stadium with Copa America. When your team wins, why do you riot and burn local businesses and smash up cars and stuff? Like, I can remember, for example, when I was a kid, I was about to start middle school, a similar occurrence happened with the Vancouver Canucks, with Roberto Luongo. They lost the Stanley Cup final after being in the lead for a long time in that series. They lose to the Boston Bruins, and in response, all the fans decided to go out from the arena and start like flipping cars, burning down businesses, smashing windows, stomping on signs, and things like that. And I remember seeing this on TV, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And apparently, like, there were riots and shit like that were going on downtown, and people were like flipping cars over or like rocking cars, tearing down lampposts and whatnot. It's like, okay, yeah, I can understand you're getting a shot of adrenaline. Your team won or your team lost, but at the same time, how is that celebratory? How does this help your situation? We tossed over a police car and lit it on fire. Yeah, and now you got felony charges on your ass. Whoop-de-doo. Was it really worth it? So yes, as you can tell, I did watch the Super Bowl, and I also want to mention one thing before I end this off. Back when I was growing up, you would watch it for the commercials, and some people still do to this day. Like, some of the most iconic commercials were originally Super Bowl commercials. If you remember, they had like this old "What's up?" That ad, and also with like the Budweiser frogs too. I remember seeing the little M&M avatars too. They would always have ads for literally everything under the goddamn sun. And they were always super zany, and they always are entertaining, memorable, and always over the top. Because when you're paying that much for a commercial in a prime time slot, one of the greatest prime time slots that you can get with hundreds of millions of people watching, you have to try to make it interesting. You try to make it stand out. You try to make it catchy. And, there were commercials with the Geico cavemen on the airport walkway, even though despite being on a walkway, it had elevator music. Do you guys remember that ad? I'm not so sure. I feel like I'm the only one who remembers it. I noticed that the quality of Super Bowl commercials have significantly declined when I was a kid up into right now. Rather sad to see. The halftime show also, which I will talk about, kind of makes or breaks the game when you really think about it. And there are people who only watch the Super Bowl just for the fucking halftime show. And so you have these really great performances like Prince with Purple Rain, Michael Jackson had a few memorable ones, Pitbull actually did a really good one in his home city 5 years ago, the Black Eyed Peas, certainly. I think the Black Eyed Peas, I think that they're tied with Madonna with having the second best halftime show, actually. Now, I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. I like his music. I didn't really think that this was a great halftime show. It wasn't god-awful, but it wasn't good. It was a 4 out of 10 halftime show. They had this little gag with Samuel L. Jackson dressing up as Uncle Sam. Makes it a little bit funny since his name is Sam. He is Uncle Sam. Ha! Get it? Yeah. Exactly, I figured. The only good highlight from Kendrick Lamar's halftime show performance was him dissing Drake and performing Not Like Us. I mean, he literally got the entire stadium to call Drake a pedo in front of hundreds of millions of people, which I thought was hilarious. Aside from that, he did play Humble, good song. I think there was also like a few tracks sprinkled in there from his Black Panther album, but there were some like iconic songs like Mad City that he didn't perform. Huge bummer there. In my personal opinion, that like this wasn't a good halftime show, and this is coming from a Kendrick Lamar fan. And you know what? Come to think of it, the commercials aren't really the only thing that have been declining in quality. We really haven't been having good halftime shows lately, with the exception of 2020 and 2022. And those were pretty good. Usually it depends on the artist and what genre of music it is, whether or not I get excited for a halftime show or not, or I just simply don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not really a big fan of Rihanna, and I wasn't really excited when she was announced to do a halftime show. Although I like that one song that she did with Eminem, and I also especially like her husband's music. Usher was one of the semi-decent ones because he brought up all these people like will.i.am, Alicia Keys, and her in there. The Weeknd, I like his music too. Wasn't really a good halftime show. I don't like any of like the more like, normie pop oriented artists. If you get like rock or electronic or like rap and you get somebody like Metallica, Marshmello, DJ Khaled, or like a Lil Wayne or something like that, I would get excited for it and I would watch it. Hopefully it ends up being a good one and not a flop. Get Linkin Park in there or Tom Morello, maybe Green Day. Although they'll probably do a politicized halftime show too. Same with Tom Morello especially. As long as it's like rock, rap, or electronic music, Metallica, Lil Wayne, Diplo, Marshmello, The Migos, Meek Mill, any of that would be good for a halftime show. As long as it's not like, I don't know, Taylor Swift, BTS, Justin Bieber, or Ariana Grande. I would say Kanye West too, although he's gone completely off the deep end. Could you imagine if he got to do the halftime show? Boy oh boy, would that end up being such an insane shit show. Like you think he's about to rap his songs, and then all of a sudden, like right in the middle of his halftime performance, he just goes off on a rant about Jewish people or something like that, and the halftime stage is like full of nothing but swastikas, and he plays one of Hitler's speeches on the Jumbotron. That would be one for the history books. I can't even imagine like Jaguar Gator 9 having to talk about it if it ever happens. To be fair, that would outshine like the crazy MTV halftime show they had back in the day. Some of you were too young to remember this, I certainly was, but you might know what I'm talking about. You remember that one with Aerosmith and NSYNC, and they had like all these other artists like Mary J. Blige, Britney Spears, Nelly, Kid Rock, and of course, Miss Jackson. I can't remember. What was her first name? I know she's Michael Jackson's sister. Also, a talented artist too. Goes to show you that I was too young for it when it was happening. But, there was like this whole moment with her and Justin Timberlake of NSYNC at the time, and I believe Justin was trying to do like a little dance battle, and he ended up accidentally ripping Jackson's costume off, leading to the world-famous nip slip. And hundreds of millions of people were actually watching it. It was such a shock when it happened at the time. It's actually what led to the creation of YouTube. Little fun fact there. This one moment from the halftime show is pretty much what started social media, because people were trying to look for footage of that video online. Thought I would throw that interesting fact in there. So yeah, that was the Super Bowl in focus. Mid-commercials, good choice of artist, but not a great halftime show. Donald Trump seemed to have a good time when he was there. And of course, big congratulations to the Eagles. I mean, you absolutely crushed the Chiefs. It wasn't even close when the second half began. So major props to you. Shout out Jalen Hurts. Shout out Nick Sirianni. Of course, can't forget about Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP. Such a great game, even though it got boring towards the end because we pretty much already knew who won. But it was a great game nonetheless. The dragon has been slayed. Three-peat denied. So either way, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button down below. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little notification bell. Don't forget to follow me on all my social medias, links are in the description below. As always, share this video around with your friends, families, boyfriends, girlfriends, enemies, whomever. Definitely helps me out a lot, helps the video grow, and helps grow the channel if you were to share this video with whomever you know. Once again, congratulations, Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl after that absolute beatdown of the Chiefs. Hopefully you guys are celebrating with a parade. Must be a really fun time there near Independence Hall. And hopefully you guys can accept the president's visit and you get to go to the White House and have some McDonald's, because you guys have certainly earned it, being the best team of this NFL season. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys are happy that the Chiefs have finally been knocked out of its pedestal like I am. And if you're an Eagles fan, must be even better for you. And I extend my congratulations to you as well. But either way, as always guys, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, talk soon, you're awesome.